Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. I am your Sensei Bob. Your griot here to tell you a story. And let's hear the story.
And they said that they are not getting callbacks, and maybe that's because of some of the things that this person said. So I'll go over that here in a second, and that is actually regarding TSMC and their factory. About 5 days ago, there was word that essentially there was a rumor that the U.S. had contingency plans to actually evacuate some of the people there or some of the engineers. Obviously, they have a big investment in that factory or in those factories. Those
talking about the Ukraine
locations.
And investments.
So I'll talk about that here in just a second. But I first want to let everybody know, obviously, more and more is coming out about multiple countries telling their citizens to get out of UKR. Now, when I first heard this, and when most people heard this, they go,
"Well,
I thought that already happened." That happened back in February when all of this stuff started going down. But that was most of the allied countries. Now, all of essentially the Vlad-friendly countries are the ones that are actually telling their officials and their people to get the heck out of there. And there are some dates floating around. We don't do dates normally, and I don't even try to. I don't want to panic people. Obviously, people are talking about dates like the 18th and this and this and that. I would look and research for yourself and see what you believe about those dates. If that is just a date in, of course, when they say that they need to be done by and things like this, rather than, this is when something goes on. I don't want the game of telephone to go any further than this. Don't spread around that day is something that it's not. Make sure to go actually do some research before you tell people and panic people. What is I have signed up for an evacuation from the country, with most registering for organized evacuations, while others are preparing to leave UKR on their own. Now, why are they all leaving? Why are they all leaving UKR? Well, first of all, there's a whole lot of other things going on. Russia just moved MiGs to Belarus. Belarus, we have talked about a whole lot. There has been a lot of rumor and a lot of speculation about Belarus being a part of anything that may happen. It may even be kind of a fall guy for something. Like if something goes on, some sort of attack that goes from Belarus to UKR, then it would not directly be Vlad. I hear a lot of people talking about that. It says that invasion fears mount as Vlad sends 9,000 troops to the Belarus border. On top of that, you have all of the troops that are, by what media says, are very, lightly trained. These are the conscripts. These are the people that were drafted. Those guys are all getting sent in. So we have a massive amount of forces moving in. And this is after, of course, what media is telling us is that UKR has basically pushed them back, and they have been victorious in a ton of this and pushing them back. And most of us are sitting here like, well, if Vlad is truly getting pushed back, he has a whole lot in his arsenal that he hasn't used yet. So that's not exactly a good thing. There's all sorts of rumors that Vlad and UKR have actually pulled civilians and basically taken them away from these zones. And that says to me that maybe they're expecting something. What people are talking about and what my peers are talking about is a shock and awe scenario where a big event is possible. What this means for the rest of the world, obviously, right now, all of these other NATO countries have a huge investment into this conflict. Everyone has given billions of dollars or gear or military or ammo or whatever it may be. So this is, if it escalates to a whole nother level, and if anything goes wrong, such as NATO involvement, and it's very obvious, then this starts a WW3. There is a good percentage of people that are kind of trying to close their ears and say, no, this isn't happening. People that can actually profit from something like a really, really horrible event. So,
is this event going to occur? This horrible event.
There was also, on top of the MiGs, the troops that were being sent to Belarus, the MiGs
Magic
being
8
sent
Ball says
to
it is
Belarus,
certain.
all which actually
Will
can
this
carry
be
these hypersonic
Russia
missiles. And
attacking
all
from
out conflict
Belarus,
declared in
shock and
UKR,
awe into
120,000
Ukraine?
troops line up Vlad's and Belarus for
My
Kiev
sources say no.
border. And then, of course,
Does this
mobilization
mean
begun.
we will have World War
This is a
III?
huge mobilization going on. Now, Xi telling their people to get out, all of these other countries all of a sudden telling people to get out, that says to me, if this is true,
Outlook
then
good.
that means they have some sort of information about something that may go down. If their ally basically said, hey, just want to warn you, you want to get people out.
Just want to warn you.
Space music.
Oh, space music.
Their collaboration.
Uh,
Sky. The piece by New York musician Alex Hans. Train of Thought.
The food insecurity and the violence can get in Haiti.
On the food insecurity, the situation is extremely concerning. We have now almost half of the population of Haiti.
this is Haiti.
1 in every second Haitian is food insecure. And we see also
Haiti is the first country to rebel
close to
against
20,000
African
in the
slavery,
urban neighborhood of Cité-Soleil, which are facing
the
catastrophic hunger
Anglo-European.
and need urgent humanitarian support.
Christopher Columbus
That was
came in
Ricardo
and
Sano, who is the
basically
UN's resident
killed all the
humanitarian
indigenous people in
coordinator
less than
in
10 years.
Now, in Brazil, the two candidates in that country's
And he
runoff
was looking
presidential
for,
election have been
because they were
trading
making books out of
accusations
all the,
in the first
you know, they
televised
chopped all the
debate ahead
trees
of a vote
down
which is
and
going to be held in a
growing
fortnight. The current
sugar and
president,
cotton
Jair Bolsonaro,
and all
praised
kinds of
Brazil's
things that
vaccination
making
program and said
profit
corruption
in Europe.
during
And
his
so
opponent's time
they
in office had led to
Rapica
the
was right
collapse of
over
the
there
country's health
and
system.
grabbed a bunch of black folk and put them into slaves. That was the first slaves
about the poor,
in
and I
North
want to make
America,
it very
or
clear.
in that
During the
region.
year 2020,
Caribbean.
when the people were forced to stay
And
at home, not
the
by my
black
decision,
slaves out who
but
were
by
there
many
over a
governors
number of
your
years
party,
rebelled
they were going to die
and
of hunger.
basically pushed
Only in
Europeans out.
emergency aid
Right?
in 2020, we
And
spent
that's
the
why you have,
equivalent of
you know,
15 years of
two,
Bolsa Familia.
there's Haiti, the island,
That Bolsa
Hispaniola,
Familia, that's an
and
economic aid plan
Haiti is over
created
here, and the
by
rich white
that
guys are
rival
over
he was
here,
talking to there,
Dominican
Luiz Inácio Lula
Republican.
da Silva, the former
And,
president. And for his part,
and
that
pretty
left-wing
much
leader
since
said
they
that
had
he
the
was capable
rebellion,
of running the country.
basically,
I'm the candidate with the
we had
perspective to rebuild this country, get this country
black
back
folk
to
were
normality.
attacked and attacked. I mean, Haiti has never
I want
really been
Congress to
prosperous.
legislate
At moments
and
it
not
has
just pass
its
a
moments,
budget.
but
Let the government govern and let the judiciary play its role. But what is more important is that the poorest people become citizens again.
he's talking about.
That runoff vote is going to be held on the 30th of October.
Well, let's now cross on to Hong Kong with our business reporter, Andrew Wood.
This
Good
is the
afternoon,
BBC we're
Andrew.
listening to,
Blackouts in
right?
Cuba are causing protests across the island, we hear?
Yes, the state-owned electricity company reckons that it can only supply.
Now, as we heard at the top of the program, the Chinese Communist Party Congress is underway. Xi Jinping has already been given 2 5-year terms as leader of China. Now, at the party's 5th yearly Congress, he is expected to be granted a 3rd term in office. As his power grows domestically, we look at the impact of China.
Hearing aids before buying them. The change is expected to make hearing aids significantly cheaper for patients who could save hundreds or even
Nothing what it means to be poor in America as part of our week-long series on poverty. With us is Luke Schaefer. He's a professor of social justice and social policy at the University of Michigan. He's also co-author of the book $2 a Day, Living on Almost Nothing in America. Also with us is Jennifer Sherman. She's
It's me,
professor of
$2 a
sociology
day.
at Washington State University. She's
Yeah.
also the author of Dividing Paradise, Rural Inequality and the Diminishing American Dream.
More $10.
And Liana Fox. She's the Assistant Division Chief of Economic Characteristics and Social, Economic, and Housing Statistics at the U.S. Census Bureau. We also want to hear from you. If you have had an experience living in poverty, or perhaps you consider yourself poor now, share your story with us. You can email us at 1a@wamu.org or tweet us at 1a. How do you make ends meet? If you're working but still can't meet your basic needs, share your story with us. Where are the pain points, and what do you need to get your head above water? Here's a message we got from Teddy in Virginia.
7 years ago, I went through almost 2.5 years of homelessness. It was quite an experience, given that before I became homeless, I was actually working as a defense consultant, making over 6 figures. It goes to show how life can be very tenuous. 1 second, enjoying an upper middle class lifestyle. Next second, 2.5 years.
Thanks for that message. Professor Schaefer, what are the main reasons for the poverty line?
He was working for the military industrial
Well,
complex.
one of them, just like Teddy mentioned, was access to affordable housing. So that can create a crisis point for families, and we know
Our
that there's
affordable
no place
housing
in the
is
country
living
where
in the
a full-time
woods,
minimum wage
right?
job will
And
be able
it's
to
going to be
afford
interesting. So
a
far,
market
it's
rate
been a warmish
rental.
fall.
Another is
But
instability
tonight
in the
it's
labor
supposed to go
market.
down
So
to
we see a lot of
29
families who are
degrees,
working in
and
jobs
tomorrow
where
should not
hours
get above
in
30.
retail or as a service sector
It
where
should be
hours might change,
With no
might go
heat,
up, go down.
it should be interesting.
And finally, instability in family lives and just overall life.
So
Rima
anyone wants
McCormick
to
was, one
help
of the
support your
moms in the book that
Sensei
I
Bob,
wrote
send
that you
something
mentioned.
to
She loved her job at Walmart. She was a cashier at Walmart. She had been named cashier of the month 2 times in the 6 months she was in the job. But she got into the truck that she shared with her uncle, unrelated uncle, who she was living with. She was doubled up because she couldn't afford a place to live. Turned it on, and the gas light popped on, and she couldn't get to work. And she was told if she couldn't get to work, she shouldn't bother coming in again.
nice
So
employer.
here we see just that sort of tenuous sort of razor edge that families
Cashier,
have to live on,
2
right?
months
Where
in a
families
row.
are managing
Really don't
instability in their
appreciate
family
you.
lives.
We'll
Families
find another
have
monkey.
become more complicated over time. Access to affordable housing, and then
What's
sometimes
going
an
on?
unforgiving labor market.
It also makes me wonder, Professor Schaefer, how often you see people like Teddy go from being financially secure to financially insecure in a relatively short period of time.
Yep.
That's right. We know that most spells of poverty are exactly that, spells of poverty. So families who might be in poverty do get a leg in the labor market, or their circumstances changes and they might be doing better over the long term. But lots of families who, as you mentioned in the start of the
Let's
show,
see what the old 8 ball has to say. Will there be a economic collapse within the next year
Liana mentioned this remarkable
on the
success
level
that we had with the
greater
extension of the child
than the
tax
Great
credit, where we saw
Depression?
child poverty plummet to the lowest level that it's ever been, and really just shock downwards. And we could
It
see
is
improvements
decidedly
across
so, says
so
the 8
many
ball.
other indicators of well-being. Food insecurity among households with children fell to the lowest
That's
level.
why I'm in
The
the
person who
woods.
couldn't afford a $400 crisis fell to the lowest level. Bank balances went up. And so really you want to give families an extra
And
economic
I
cushion,
have all these
that
rich
sort
people
of
moving in
that
around
little
me,
bit of a safety net,
and
that
they
can
will
catch
be
when they fall, and hopefully make it so like someone like Ray McCormick, when she
no
has
one
that
will
crisis
notice me.
moment, she doesn't fall into a spell of extreme poverty,
Right.
but
I'm
rather
nobody's
is able
threat.
to keep that job.
Well, Professor Sherman, how difficult is it for someone to get out of poverty once they're in it? Professor Schaefer referred to spells of
Poverty
poverty,
is
but
a state
is
of
it stickier
mind,
for some people than others?
right? I living on $10 a day.
It really will depend often on other factors, right? So the structure
And,
of the society and the place that they're
I
in
don't
will
consider
really
myself
heavily impact how difficult
in
or
poverty.
easy it is to
you know?
get out of poverty. So it's
Yeah.
going to depend on
Look at
things
this.
like the labor market, right? Are there other jobs, right? Is there something similar available in the times that you're in? It's going to depend also on what caused that spell and whether it is, a one-time issue, or a lot of times that crisis isn't over, with filling your. A lot of times that
Okay. So I don't consider myself in poverty. Look, this is where I live. And what's sad is the rich folk, they can't appreciate this. They run around, they zip up here, zip there. They ride their motorcycles, their RTVs, and they don't hear the call. Now, I'm coughing because the forests are dying. They're not just leaves turning colors and falling off. They're actually dying. What we have to do, we hear John Birmingham go on about God and Jesus, 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 God and Jesus. No, we have to have God and Jesus. God's unconditional love in our heart and Jesus' unconditional forgiveness in our mind. And every day and every way, we need to take the peace of the world and make it stronger. So there's poverty. I mean, I was going to play a whole bunch of news. The news is never any good. And whenever they try and play a piece, it's just a cutesy kind of thing. It doesn't really talk about love's co-creation, right? What it's about. Why are we here? What's going on? We're here to learn how to love in co-creation. See it clearly. Okay, we're going to do, and why I'm coughing is because the leaves are falling off, and they're dropping the dust of the pollution that is all. You can be out in the middle of nowhere, and you can still be affected by this. So take a good look at this. This is a tribe in Australia, the Northern Territory called the Nukumba, just below Ayers Rock, kind of between Ayers Rock and Alice Springs, where we have some of our most secret stuff. I would suggest that you guys go watch a great TV show called The Time Tunnel. Go on YouTube and see what you can pull up. And that is the kind of stuff that's buried under Alice Springs. But this is a tribe. So here I am, right here. And that is my little dingo dog, right? And he's trying to pull me into the corroboree. And this is a baby that's only weeks old. And look at the halo around that infant's head. That's the fact that Jesus is always with us. Jesus didn't leave. He's not coming back. If Jesus wasn't here, we would be toast. Just look at, what I played, just a little bit of what people thought was important. Right? I'm going to read you. This is a syllabus of a class I did in 2012. It was called, and I had been developing it since '88. It was called Sensei Al, the 2012 Rolling Minstrel Show, right? And I had been pretty much the traveling scholar since 1988. Right? And I was in training, since I studied under the old crone in Ireland, the West Coast, near Skibbereen. So I'm just going to read you a little of this, right? How desperately do we need to be loved, and to love love's intent in something we all must have. Our spirit, our soul feeds upon this love. Without love's intent, we become weak and no longer able to look with courage and confidence at our world. With love's intent, we are creative and evolutionary. With love's intent, we march tirelessly with good thoughts in our healthy mind, speaking good words that lead to ethical actions within our lives. With love and love alone, we are able to sacrifice for others, to pay forward love's good intent, to manifest a better and better world. And I wrote that on 9/11/01 as I was watching the World Trade Center fall in dust to the ground, straight into the basement. Didn't tip over, didn't chunks fall off. No, it turned to dust. The only way that could happen is with a space-based Tesla weapon. The only thing keeping we, the monkey children of God, from our Creator's unconditional love and forgiveness is our own freely chosen environment of separated robot habitual actions of fear, greed, selfish hate, ignorance, and prejudicial thinking. The war going on in Ukraine, great example. The all of the military industrial complex is just loving it, right? Making money up to love is God. when Johnny Boy goes, God and Jesus, God and Jesus, God and Jesus, and does a little dance, God and Jesus, God and Jesus, God. That is not God and Jesus. Love is God. Love is it, big case. And love's intent is the key to understanding oneself and the whole universe around us. Love's intent is the power of all creation's meaning, all that connects, animates all things. It is that of God's life force. That is love. I'm going to read that again, right? Because this gunk in the air and on my inability to speak. So here we go. Love is God. Love is it, big case. And love's intent is the key to understanding oneself and the whole universe around us. Love's intent is the power of all creation, period. Meaning all that connects and animates all things, semicolon, is that God's life force, is that of God's life force. That is love. And how we connect to that love without free will's intent is how we manifest. I'm going to read that again. And how we connect to that love, comma, with our free will's intent, comma, is how we manifest the positive or negative outcomes in our individual lives around us. That means keeping God's love, unconditional love in your heart, and creating the environment inside your mind, how you think about things, right? Within the construct of your free will, Jesus' unconditional forgiveness. Without love's intent, we are stuck in a world where we are left with a nagging question. Who are we? Where did we come from? And why is life unfair? Meaning, if you have faith in God's unconditional love and faith in Jesus' unconditional forgiveness to run your life, That's what you run your life on, that faith, not belief in a construct of a dialectic that's in a book. No. Our world viewed in this linear, two-dimensional world of separate robot senses of fear, greed, selfish hate, ignorance, and prejudicial thinking is then passed through a timeline, a patriarchal history, comma, of a unknowable Father God, right? Whose needs are administered and motivated by a power-hungry orthodoxy of male, politically moneyed, blood-thirsting order of parasites, faced with an illusion of our seeming Holocaust reality. No wonder the world and all of us in it feel scared and confused, much like suicidal rats on a never ending treadmill, a meaningless fear and violence. And remember, I wrote this the day of 9/11, 2001, when the buildings were repetitively shown falling straight down as dust, not chunks, not pieces, not explosion, not tipping over, but dust going straight into the basement. And it filled up the basement. It was only 6 stories below in the basement. How did 100 and something stories fall completely? Because it was dust. And most of that dust was asbestos. I mean, why those buildings came down? It was a real estate gig because those buildings stopped being worth anything. The guy who bought them, what's his name? He bought them for like nothing. And he only had to put down $5 million in earnest money. Then, because of what happened in 96 under Bill Clinton, when the basement was blown up, he got a special risk insurance policy. So when those buildings went down, he got $3 billion. He got $3 billion for the investment of only $5 million. How can we not be endangered without love's intent? We have no idea in what direction we are to traverse. How do we move forward without love's safety? And again, I wrote this on 9/11. This is what I was thinking about 9/11. And I've been thinking about it and pursuing this, even though, I was the itinerant scholar and I was at different universities studying different things for different, the corporations. But I felt that by doing so, I had an influence, right? And I had all these young folk around me, right? And I was influencing them to do their best, right? When we step forth from our Creator's garden paradise, I mean, this is what it is. That's what our world is, garden paradise, right? And every day we wake up, we can have God's love in our heart and Jesus' unconditional forgiveness in our mind. And we can pursue a direction of love's co-creation, right? Because look at this place. I just want you to look at this place, right? And we're going to, at this moment, we have been on air for about 30, 40 minutes. And you're going to look at Garden of Paradise right there. And I'm going to do a guided meditation right here, right now. So I want you to sit down, put yourself in a position of relaxation, whether in a chair or lying down on a couch or a bed, but put your body, your avatar, your bag of water, into a state of relaxation, right? So just lie down, sit down, put yourself someplace so when your consciousness leaves your body and your body goes on to, when your consciousness goes into dream time, like you do in sleep, your body will the autopilot will switch on. So Put yourself in that state. Don't cross anything. Don't cross your legs. Don't cross your arms. Don't cross your fingers. Don't cross your eyes. Just get in a relaxed state. And now, consciously, breathe in deeply, in through your nose. Breathe in through your nose, deep, 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 deep. 20, 30% more than you normally do. Because when you normally breathe, you are breathing unconsciously. You don't even know you're breathing, right? So, to breathe in 20, 30% more than you normally do, you will have to consciously breathe, meaning all of that, swirl in your brain, and all the, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to move, I got to do the laundry. How am I going to pay my bills? Oh, that guy, I hate that guy, he said me things. That little monkey, that little insane squirrel in your mind, just like on your cell phone, you just swish it away off the screen. You consciously focus on your breath, right? Breathe in 20, 30%. Just fill those lungs. Fill them up, fill them up, fill them up, fill them up, fill them up. Hold it for a second. Hold it, hold it. Now breathe it out. 40 to 50% more. Because the next breath in, you'll be able to breathe in even more easily. So continue with that process. Wash and rinse, right? And as you breathe in, you're breathing in the photonic light. That light right up there. That light that doesn't shine a shadow, right? It just illuminates, right? It shows this picture of paradise. See it clearly, right? So close your eyes and visualize that you're breathing in that prana, that photonic light, and it's going into your lungs, and all those little cilia are picking it up, and the blood is flowing through your lungs, and those cilia are injecting all of that photonic light into your blood. And all that iron, because it is a photoelectric chemical process, all that iron in your blood is picking up that photonic energy and taking it to every cell of your body. And see every cell of your body expanding and growing and glowing with that light. See that light up there? That is your cell, right? See that all your cells, looking at the cells of your blood, they normally look like gooky brown. When you breathe in that photonic light, each cell becomes a little sun in itself. See it clearly. Can you hear that noise? It's the monster of materialism. It's the monster of unconscious robotic habitual actions of fear, greed, selfish hate, ignorance, and prejudicial thinking. That sound you just heard? That's the monster of materialism, of mercantile ownership, control, without any real reason of why. What are you serving when you are just making money, just getting stuff? What are you getting from that? What you're doing, you're trying to fill up that hole in your spirit because you have no love there. And you think, oh, if I just get this, that new car, oh, that girl will like me, or that boy will think I'm really hot if I just wear this skimpy thing. Do you really want that kind of attention? Or do you want love's unconditional love, where you can be in co-creation, where you can be yourself? See it clearly. And I'm going to count from 1 to 3, and as I do, you're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into a state of conscious relaxation. So 1, your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. You're breathing in deep, deeper than you've ever did, and comfortably before. And you're breathing in that prana, and that prana is Father Sky, which is the Holy Spirit, which is love. Feel that love in every cell of your body as your blood is pumping it through. The blood is being pumped through your lungs and changed, taking the toxicity of your existence and you're breathing it out. That's why you're breathing out more than you're breathing in, because you're getting rid of, you're evacuating all of that crap that's in your body. Right? Now, this is why I'm still alive. I died in 2014. They were going to cut my legs off and crack my chest, and still I'd probably be dead. But somebody to make some money, And I refused to let them do that. I made them roll me back in the ICU. I got out of there like within a day, and I went down to this beautiful little house in the Keys where the lawyer, the desperate lawyer, had his nice little compound. I said, I need a colonic, I need a herbalist, I need a endocrinologist, I need a herbalist, I need an acupuncturist, I need a massage therapist. And they worked on me for about a week and a half and got me to a place where I had homeostasis, and I hobbled into that guy's office and I proceeded to do what he wanted me to do. I negotiated a deal between untenable sources, and he made his, $6 million, and he was righteous enough to send me back to his nice little place in the Keys and pay for those people to work on me for a whole nother month. So I was even better, right? And I had turned a corner, right? I was still 200 pounds overweight. I still had diabetes. I still had all the things wrong with me, but I wasn't, my legs weren't black anymore. They weren't going to cut them off, right? And it took me 7 years, but I got to a place right now where I'm in homeostasis. And I weigh 193. I went from 400 to 193. I don't take any drugs, I don't take any diabetes drugs or cholesterol drugs or any of those other drugs that they had me on. I did take them for a year because I was in real bad state, but I changed my diet so severely that I lost that weight, and I keep my blood sugar normally between 90 and 120. And if I have a piece of cake, my blood sugar will shoot up to 170. I take some cinnamon and some other herbs, and my blood sugar goes down. But the main thing is my that I exercise. I don't like do jumping jacks or do anything of that nature. I just kind of hey there, little bee. It's a little yellow jacket right there. A fall yellow jacket. You're not going to like tomorrow. Tonight's going to go down to 29. You're going to be an icicle. So, come on, Scott. So, there you are. You're in a comfortable place. And I didn't just do the straight on, visualization. I want you to be conscious to hear what I say when I'm talking about things. And I want you to understand that there's this shamanic energy that I put into each of these little talks I give to you, right? And I want you to see that. Right? And now that you're in state, that you're conscious, you're not thinking about your rent or anything other than your breath. You're just, consciously focused on your breath. See it clearly. And one, you're in a deep, 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 deep state of relaxation. Your body is illuminated, as is the forest around me. And you are feeling God's unconditional love in your heart because that photonic energy is circulating through it. It has come all the way around, and you're expanding and expelling and eliminating and evacuating all the negative energy in your body. all of that fear, all of that anger, all of that self-loathing, you're letting go of it all. See it clearly. And every day and every way, you're taking the piece of the earth and you're making it stronger. See it clearly. So, it says, born to hunt, right? I'm on the hunt. I'm on the hunt for love's co-creation. I'm on the hunt to find people who want to free themselves, that they can be the decider, that they won't be restricted or controlled by the illusion of the ego. See it strongly. And your body is no longer controlled by that fear. You have illuminated yourself with that photonic light so strongly that you can feel conditional forgiveness of Jesus in your consciousness. And you're letting go. You're forgiving yourself. You're forgiving everyone else that you blame. You know, if you watch John's last video, you know, he was going on and on and on about, you know, God. But he didn't know the real cause. The real cause was that John's ego, he can't let it go. He has this laundry list of wrongs. And that's what I see everyone doing around. They blaming everybody else but themselves, you know? And every opportunity, I mean, I have lots of opportunities. I could blame everybody for everything, but I don't. I basically thank everyone for everything because it gives me the opportunity to understand the world around me. I mean, whatever obstacles you may have, and I've had lots. I've died 7 times in my life, and 3 of them, people were trying to murder me. You know, a nun in 1st grade, she, you know, crushed my larynx. You know, broke the orbit in this. I crushed my larynx so I couldn't speak, right, and barely could breathe. You know, broke the orbit in this eye so I couldn't see out of it, and broke the little horseshoe in my ear so I couldn't hear. And for 2 years, I didn't. My mouth was wired shut for 6 months. Right, my head was in a cast, you know, a helmet, right, holding my head together. And you know, the Catholic one element of the Catholic Church wanted to give me a lobotomy, but luckily I had a cardinal watching out for my butt because he wanted me to be a rocket scientist for the Pope, and you know. I was sent to a sanctuary of the Maryknolls in Garden City, Long Island, where I spent a year and a half. And all of these guys, the priests weren't wearing a collar, the nuns weren't wearing the penguin suit. They were all in civvies, and they were all brilliant people. They all had PhDs and high degrees, yet they were teaching, but they were serving in hospitals, in schools, in jails. They were bringing people together, help soup kitchens, and these people could have made millions because they were really, really brilliant. But they wanted to serve love, creation, right? That's why I learned about this from these guys. And one of those folks was an audiologist, you know, about how you hear and speak, right? And they told me, well, you know, this ear doesn't hear the way it should, but it hears other ways. You're hearing other frequencies that most human beings can't. So I was able to, this ear is like a Doppler radar. I can tell where people are. In a dark room, you know, or I'm out in the middle of the night, just stay still and I can hear everything that's out there. I can hear if there's an animal or a person or a thing or what. And I can hear car engines and machine engines. I used to fix things by just putting my hand on it and feeling it vibrate and listening to it, right? And this eye sees other frequencies of light, right? And so actually other dimensions of light, right? Which are there, but it wasn't until we invented, realizing infrared, it wasn't RGB, it wasn't just red, blue, green, the rainbow. No, it was many other levels of energetic intensity, right? On different frequencies. And this eye can see them, right? And it because of the shape that she left my little orbit, it squished my eyeball of a certain way, and it keeps it looking. You know how horses have blinders because they see almost 360, and that's what we have. Our fear is our blinders, right? And so this eye doesn't have a blinder, so I can see things, and that's why I can read people's body language because I see things. I mean, when I'm out and about, when I'm totally everywhere, I am always observing everything. Right? This eye observes everything, and this one fills the rest of it in. Right? And the closest I could explain it to you is if you ever watch TV in a dark room and you're kind of falling asleep, and you then become conscious that you're seeing two different things. You're seeing like this part of the room and the TV set, and that happens to a number of people. Thank you, Crow. No, that's not a crow. That's a bird of prey. So, one, you're in a deep, 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 deep sense of relaxation. Your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath, your body, your avatar, the squirrel in your head, right? You're not thinking about anything but that unbelievable feeling you're feeling in your heart of God's unconditional love, that amazing sharpness of vision and understanding of Jesus's unconditional forgiveness. Feel those clearly, right? And see all the cells of your body healing themselves. No matter what's wrong with you, feel this. If you have, diarrhea, constipation, heart palpitations, like me, I have, diabetes, aplastic anemia, Charcot legs. I mean, I shouldn't be standing. Yes, I'm kind of leaning, but I shouldn't even be able to do this. But I am because I am loving you, right? And, this is quite an important little conversation we're having. Now, I know a number of you will come back and watch this later. I mean, a good deal of my audience watches this show like it's wallpaper, right? And because right now, because of the time of day or whatever it is, there's nobody there, not even AI. But that's okay because this is an important show and I'm putting it in there. And the last show I did was similar. We did a guided meditation with Mr. Magic, and so this one I'm doing it in God's lovely garden of paradise here. So there you are in a relaxed position, lying down or sitting in a chair, totally safe. Your body is totally safe. Know that you're safe, secure. And if you got to come back, I just snap my fingers and you'll be right back here. But for now, you're going on a journey. You're going deeper and deeper in this state of concentration. And you're feeling God's unconditional love in your heart through breathing in that photonic light, that prana, the prana of God's unconditional love. That's a physical manifestation of God's love in our little garden of paradise. That's what animates all of this. All of this, what is photosynthesis but that plant taking, that prana, that photonic energy, and turning it into light. This leaf, when it was green, So these green leaves, through chlorophyll, take that photonic light and turn it into life. grows that tree. And then as the seasons change, it goes, that leaf is the expendable part of that body, right? So it's not, as winter comes, that tree wouldn't stay alive if it had to keep this leaf green. So the leaf turns brown and falls off, right? And that's fall. And that's what life is, right? And our body does the same kind of thing. All the living things have their circle of life. They're born, they live, they're infants, they're young children, they're teenagers, they're young adults, they're adults, mature adults, then aging adults, and then old folk, right? Kind of like me. I'm your old, just like my teacher was the old crone. I'm your old sensei, your griot, here to tell you stories, right? And here you are. You're right at what is known as your imaginary mirror, where you go to sleep at night and you have REM sleep, rapid eye movement. That is your imaginary mirror. That's the doorway into your subconscious, right? That's what Freud called it. Subconscious mind, conscious mind, and superconscious mind, right? So your conscious mind is your everyday, right? Your subconscious mind is in your dream state. That's why he was so into dreams, right? And your rapid eye movement is you're watching the movie screen. So when you are in dream time, that's why the show is called Dreamy Dreamland. When you're in dream time, you are on the other side of that barrier of your imaginary mirror, right? So there you are, standing right in front of it. And I want you to take that, keep breathing, consciously breathing in. Your conscious mind is just totally focused on breathing in that prana. And then, and yesterday when we did a guided meditation with Mr. Magic, it was great because you could hear his breathing, and it was like a kind of motivating the observer on, right? If you go watch that, you can be cheered on by Mr. Magic's breath because you could hear him breathe in and you could hear him breathe out, right? And when you get to this state, right, of going through your imaginary mirror, you either go into REM sleep and then into the higher alpha, beta, delta. Those are different stages of your dream state, and you go into that dream where you're really conscious of your dreams, and that's where we're going, right? But you heard Mr. Magic, and he was kind of falling asleep. You could hear him kind of fall asleep. So that was it. So I want you to focus on your breath. Come on, focus on your breath. See it clearly, an imaginary mirror, and you're walking through it, and it's kind of walking through Jello. It's the event horizon of this dimension to that dimension. See it clearly. And there you are, right? And you look around and you see it's a library. Look at that. That's your library. It's your Akashic record. See it clearly. Look all around. Clearly. And one, you're in a deep, deep, deep state of conscious relaxation. And your body is on remote control, autopilot, and your consciousness, that state of awareness of who and what you are, is clear and illuminated by that photonic light. You see no shadows. And you're walking into your library, and then right in the front there is this gigantic fireplace that you could drive a tractor trailer through, right? And in it is a blue flame, and that's the eternal flame. Right? And it's swirling around, and there's like two flames, the twin flame, you and love's co-creation. That's the twin flame. So you look there, and in front there's a big fireplace, and you're looking all around, and it's all this stone. But then you look closer, and those stones aren't stones; they're books, really big books, big books. The whole Akashic record is made up of these books. Right? And in front of the fireplace are a number of very comfortable lounge chairs, leather bound, well cushioned chairs, and not like lazy boy, but inclined. But you've got a nice posture if you're sitting in a chair. And there's a coffee table that you can have coffee or tea or little crumpets, and you can have guests. Right? They come to you, right? And they come to you through that fireplace. That's why it's big enough to drive a tractor trailer through, right? And you saw the Harry Potter movies, and they got around going through the fireplace. Well, good deal of why those books are so popular is that there is a great deal of relevance to what they're talking about. Of course, a great deal, and most of it is a metaphor, but it strikes a note of why do I like this, right? So see it clearly. So there you are, standing there. There's the right, and behind those nice lounge chairs and the coffee table is a reading desk, right? And coming from above is this light that is photonic light, and there are no shadows. You can put your hand there, and there are no shadows, right? Where incandescent light, there are shadows. If you were in a room with an incandescent lamp, and you put your hand there, there's a shadow there, right? You're standing in front of your car and the headlights are on, there's a shadow there. You're in a classroom with fluorescent light, there is less shadow because it's muddied. It's not being created by a burnt element. It's being, that light is being created by a phosphorized gas inside the fluorescent lamp. And if you are under diode lights, because fluorescent lamps are being replaced by diodes, it's a whole different kind of light, and it's made by another chemical reaction. So one is a burning of a material. That's what Edison's light bulb was, but he didn't invent it. Other people had invented it. He just put his name on the patent. You go look at all of Edison's patents, are all written in different handwriting. The only place his handwriting is the same is where it says he owns it. He was J.P. Morgan's little monkey of the material world. So there you are. You're standing there in front of your reading table, and right there is a beautiful reading chair. Very comfortable, again, leather-bound, padded, very cushy chair, but it's kind of got a straight back. So when you're sitting there, you're not lounging, but you are sitting. So all of the energy in your body can flow freely. See it down, right? So you're sitting down, and to your left, you have your three guides. Your librarian, I want you to see your librarian clearly now. See what your librarian looks like. See it clearly, right? See what gender, how it's dressed, all the rest. Hairstyle, exactly, right? To the left of your librarian, and your librarian brings you the information that you need from the Akashic record. Brings you the book. Right? Your librarian knows what you need, brings it to you. You go through the book yourself. You're the decider. You're the person who's ferreting out the information. To the left of your librarian is your animal totem. And I, your Sensei Al-Bab, am an animal totem, right? I am here to tell you a story. That's what your animal is. Your animal totem is a griot. That's what I am, right? And it's not a sensei per se, because it's not quite a teacher is telling you a story, but whenever you read or see or try to grok something from your Akashic record, you don't understand it because a great deal of that is like almost beyond your understanding, right? Your animal totem will tell you a story or put it into your experience through soul speak, where you're understanding things without hearing words. And because you need to see it. And so when you are hearing or feeling or seeing something in soul speak, you see it on your imaginary mirror, right? So you get the whole picture. Whenever you see something on your, that's why dream time in dreamland is so important, because you get the whole picture. You don't, and then when you wake up, boy, what was that dream about? And you get so wound up in the material, your feet hit the ground, and bango, you're just that crazy squirrel. As soon as your feet hit the ground after sleep, you should stay in bed. You should use this process. The best time to practice guided meditation, this meditation that I'm trying to teach you. I'm not trying, I am teaching you, right? And you are doing your best to understand it. And that's why the next, however many more shows that I do in this series are going to be about this. And it's going to be how to meditate. Love's co-creation. That's what the show is going to be. Instead of are you happy, it's and that was with a question mark, or what's going on, those were question marks. You're supposed to question this stuff, right? Not be a robot and believe, right? And spit it back, right? See it clearly. You are the decider. You are love's co-creation. You are not some, avatar. You're not some mud puppet. You're not some cheeky monkey or crazy squirrel. You are a child of love's co-creation. You are doing your best to, in every day and every way, take the piece of the earth, of love's earth, of one love, and make it stronger by doing your best at forgiving unconditionally, right? Just letting it go. When you let it go, you can understand what's right in front of you, right? So, in every day, in every way, take the piece of the earth and let it go. And one, you're in a deep, 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 deep state of relaxation. You're in your Akashic record. You're sitting at your reading table. Your librarian is placing your Akashic record in front of you. You open it up. And it's a big book. Open it up. And there's 2 big pages. And they're blank. And so you put your right hand on the right page and your left hand on the left page, and you lean into it and you evacuate, you eliminate, you crap out all the vomit shit that's in your body and your soul, in your consciousness, all that black, oily anger and fear and self-loathing and ego right onto the page. And you get it close. You let it go. And you're looking down at the page. Now this slimy black goo, oily, is just moving around. It's not just staying there. It's actually animated and it's turning into imagery. And it's like, if not like, it is a Rorschach test. Where do you think they got that idea of ink bots? Right? It's this lesson right here that your Sensei Al Bob is giving you about how to evacuate all of that anger, fear, self-loathing, pity, all the negative things of your ego, that I say it so well. Still, even though I wrote it, I still have to put my glasses on. The only thing keeping we, the monkey children of God, from our Creator's unconditional love and forgiveness is our own freely chosen environment of separated, robot, habitual, actions of fear, greed, selfish hate, ignorance, and prejudicial thinking. These aren't real. These are ego. Process of elimination, of just evacuating all of that crap out of you, right? It's no longer in you. But you can see what it was, right? You can see like a rod, you see it moving around and you go, oh, it's this, it's that, it's right. Then you take the two covers of the book and go, boom. And when that book is closed, you feel unbelievable because all that's left inside of you is God's unconditional love. All that's left inside of you is, in your conscious mind, is your Jesus's unconditional forgiveness. So you forgive yourself, you can forgive your parents, your mother, everybody who you think has taken something away. You forgive them, right? Then you can, and when you forgive yourself, you see that it wasn't God who did this to you, or it wasn't the devil that did this to you, or it wasn't the man who did this to you. It was yourself that was uh, existing, in this environment of separated robot habitual actions of fear, greed, selfish hate, ignorance, and prejudicial thinking. Right. So that's the environment that we're stuck in the material, mercantile. We were not born to accumulate a empire. Does Elon Musk need all that? Does Jeffrey Bezos need all that? Does Billy Gates need all that? And all those other folk, do they need all that? No. And when they say, well, I'm going to give it away, they give it away in such a way that it instruments their power, even after their death, right? So you're getting a picture here, getting a drift, right? You're now no longer in your material body, you're no longer in your avatar, you're in your Akashic record. You're getting some pretty deep insights, right? And you can do this anytime you want. You don't need me to continually do this for you. This is just a YouTube on how to, free your soul. You don't have to pay anybody, And I'm doing this because, I was set on this path to do this, I agreed before I was born, okay, I'll do this. And because of that, I have been a lucky bastard my whole freaking life. I've shown you books and books and books of photographs, early on when I would be involved in things and Spirit would say, well, remember to tell people about this. And I'd say, no one's going to believe me. So that's when when I was about 7, when I 8, 9, when I was recuperating from the nun killing me, and I was talking to all these, one of those Marinols said, this nun, Sister Karen, really sweet, right? And she was a photographer. She had a dark room. She was the first person to show me a dark room and how it works and all the above, right? And I kind of and she showed me how it works, the magic of it, right? But she goes, you'll have to wait a while. These chemicals are dangerous. We're going to teach you more. But the thing you really need to know, forget the chemicals, forget the camera. Most important thing is your eye. So there's one eye here, and this eye, why my pictures. Let's see if I have something that shows it. So This is a good book. I got a lot in the car, but I'll just show you this one because it shows my photographic technique. So this is the story of this year, 1993, in Asheville, North Carolina. This is the Vance Monument, which is not there anymore because they said it represented Civil War, blah, 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 right? So, but it didn't because this is like the Washington Monument. This is obelisk. It represented a lot more than just prejudice, right? And they didn't want people to even think about this hidden hand here. And that's what this little obelisk, well, it wasn't too little. It's about 3 stories tall. It's right in the middle of town, right? And so, and this is the town. This was the town that was built in the 20s that represented the Paris of the South, right? And it basically, that's better. It basically looks like Manhattan because all the people were from Manhattan, right? The rich guys, Astors, the Biltmores, all those guys, right? And so they built this, and then they went bankrupt, right? And then in the 70s, they tried to build the George Jetson thing, but that's all they got. That and the BB&T building. Let's see how the obelisk is right in front of it, representing it. So the obelisk was right here facing the 1920s vision of materialism. Here is the 1970s, 80s, well, 70s version of materialism with the obelisk right in front. This is just like 2001. See, I'm telling a story with photos. Now, this was the big fancy rich people cemetery, and all the great artists who were hanging out in Asheville were buried here, right? And you go through this, and people don't even know where this thing is, and it's like on the nicest corner of it's not near the highways, it's not near downtown. I mean, it is kind of 10 blocks to downtown, and it's right where the French Broad. It's really the only place that's left that's still nice. And I have a couple buddies who were smart enough to buy property around it, right? But their daddies would give them money to do it. But see, this is an apartment I had, and it had 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a dining room, and a living room, and that's what this was, and had great light coming in. And I had 2 covered parking spaces and a storage bin downstairs. Plus, my electric and heating was paid for, and my gas was paid for, all for $170 a month. This is in 1991 to 1994. And at night, this is what it looked like. You know, I lit it up with my disco theater lights, and I would have salons there once a week, right? And I had this buddy who, here's me. This is what I look like in my late 40s, right? 50 to 60, 70, 80, 90. Yep. 40s. Yep. There I am. Me and my alter ego, Iron Man. Here's my other brother, Albert. And here's one of my sweeties. She was a nurse at Memorial Mission. And she was great. She was a surgical nurse, right? And she had the nerves of steel, but she was such a marshmallow. She just such a sweetie. And her sweetness, her innocence, and her steely nature and her brilliance, men were really, and she was in her late 30s, so her real hot stuff, but she was still hot stuff. And she just loved me. And I loved her. But after 2 years, she wanted to really have babies, and she was not going to get there. So, and I said, well, you're going to have to find, you love me because of what I am and who I am and what I do. And if I become a dad and a father, I have to be something else, and you won't love that. And she goes, yep. So we stayed friends with benefits, and she moved out of Asheville, and she went to think she went to Denver, right? And she went. I mean, she went to a totally. She didn't stay in the South. She went to Denver, and basically had met a guy and had babies, and then became a doctor. She became because she delivered a lot. So that's me. This is on top of Mount Mitchell, and this was I forget this guy's name. I can't believe because he and I were like brothers. And this is when there was a guy named Julian Price, and he was richer than God, and he was heir to the Philip Morris fortune, and he felt guilty about it, so he tried to do things. So he tried to sell Mount Mitchell, and I was his photographer, and this guy he had been in the Navy and was there for enough years to like kind of retire, get out and do. He got out in good standing, and so he got GI Bill to go. But he studied theater and philosophy and writing and all kinds of art stuff, and he just kept going to college, right? And so he was following in my footsteps, and but he had seen and done things that he still couldn't forgive himself for, and I basically was helping him do that. So I was his sensei, his griot, and we did amazing art together, right? And we put together this thing called the Freely Inquiring Society. And here's Jeff, and he's like I keep finding Jeffs everywhere I go, and like the lucky guys, Jeff, and this is that Jeff, and this was Haig, and he was like always in control. He's wearing his top hat. And here's another artist. This is his artwork up here. And this was a art gallery that was just an abandoned building that I just stuck some, track lights that I had and painted the walls. And this lady was one of the art, she was part of the Asheville Arts Association, blah blah. And this guy, he was a pretty well-known artist. I knew him from New York, and he found a big old house in Asheville for like 15,000, and moved in there and fooled around with it. Kevin something, and he was a mediocre, successful artist. He probably made, back in the day when it's in New York, he's getting 20, 30 grand a painting. And these guys were really sweet couple. They were artists, and they were more artists of making crafty art, right? And they had an art organization, and there's me and Haig. Haig was just loads of fun. And see, these pictures, right? They capture the moment, right? The historical moment, the emotional moment. That's what I do in my photography, right? And here's a guy, Vincent Moron, right? He's a New Yorker. He made his fortune with Ticketron, right? He started Ticketron in the 60s. He made a good living doing that. He backed a number of Broadway shows, so he was kind of a Broadway producer. And he sold Ticketron for millions and moved to Asheville, right? And he came in and he wanted to do this, he wanted to turn and there was a really great theater. There were two great theaters. They both black theaters of the Chitlin circuit, and he manipulated himself to take their money and their buildings and turn it into a white thing. It's now called it's right there at Pack Place, right? If you go there, it's Pack Place. Anyway, so he knew me from New York. He knew me, he knew what I was in New York. So oh, look, it's you. Oh, wow. I met him one day downtown, and he was talking to these other people, and these other people thought I was the guy who I looked like the guy who was the director, Michael, whatever his name was, who did The Last of the Mohegans. And Last of the Mohegans was made in Asheville because they had all of these kind of mountainish structures all over the place that they could, do and see and find, right? And so these guys, all the guys who thought they were in power, Vincent Moron and about four of the guys, one guy who kind of controlled that George Jetson modern building, and they've been wanting to make Asheville it, but I kept saying Ashland's not. It's in amber. It's not coming out until the debt, the depression debt, is finally paid, which was '96. Right. So they were getting ready. They were like getting it to be, and this was in the basement of the library that they had just renovated to be a cultural center, right next to the Civic Center on whatever name, Haywood Street. Right. So anyway, I got together a bunch of these artists who realized, I said, guys, these guys are just gonna hose everybody here. When the debt goes down, bang, they'll be ready to make millions and turn it. So we started a thing called the Artist Trust, and that's us, the Artist Trust. And I was on the inside because I was his guy, his strategic guy, helping him take over the city because I had done that with Soho. He knew me when I did that in Soho. So he said, I need you to do that. I said, sure, yep, not a problem. So, but I played both sides of the thing because I didn't want these guys to do what they did to Soho. So in New York City. So I basically played along. And so I got to know their inside straight of what it is. And he brought the other one of this is a guy, his son-in-law this is the son-in-law of the guy who kind of controlled the Biltmore House. Another guy who thought he was Mr. Ritchie. Anyway, so if you look close at all these people, they aren't representing that class of folk. These are kind of retired school teachers and artists and people who wanted, they came to Asheville, and that was what was beautiful about Asheville. And again, it was like this Garden of Paradise place. And so here is the Artist Trust. We're organizing, right? And our basic thing, I was on the inside of the rich guys, and I saw all of what they were going to do. And what they were going to do is like swipe the black nonprofit cultural thing and take their property, and they had raised $1 million to renovate this building back to what the old Chitlin Circuit Theater was. And if you go to Asheville, there's a place called the Orange Peel, which was another one of those buildings. And there's 3 or 4 other buildings that was part of that Chitlin Circuit. And they were going to take it over and basically turn Asheville into a black cultural center in the Appalachian Mountains. And there are a lot of black people in the Appalachian Mountains, but we don't hear about that. But if you were to go to Inside Appalachia on public radio and go to their website, they have a ton, because they do a great job of telling the real story of Appalachia, right? And again, isn't this fun, kids? You're in a guided meditative state and you're getting all of this, right? So again, go back and watch this, and if you really want the guided meditation, I'm going to go all the way through it. We're only in this for an hour and 23 minutes, and there's no one watching anyway. So here's this handful of people that started the Artist Trust, right? And here is so she was a real organizer from New York, and she was a painter, and she made her living restoring the Louis XIV furniture in the Biltmore House, and this was her husband, and he was a great guy. He was like your basic old hippie guy, but he was a painter too, a sculptor. This is their artwork up there. If you can see it, that's their living room, and they lived a very meager life. Here's more of the Artist Trust. We're in a circle. I always put everyone in a circle, right? Whereas you can see Vincent Moron. How does he line the people up in straight rows, right? So he can control them, a linear point of view, right? So here we are, and we are, writing our 501c3 grant proposal for the Artist Trust. They got big lawyers and stuff, right? So, and here's Kevin, David Hopes. He was a great theater guy and a literary teacher at UNCA. Great guy. And so these are all the Ritchie, like Kevin. They're all people from the art world from New York that stumbled into Asheville, like me, And this guy's German, right? And here he is again. Here's his side view. And he came from Berlin. And so there was a big, there's always been a big gay community in, so here's my kitchen and here's the salon every Friday night, right? And this guy was a guy I knew from when I went to Juilliard. He was at Juilliard too, and he was, he was the good, handsome guy. He was going to be the movie star actor, be super famous. Oh, going to be famous, right? And he didn't. He failed at every, he, never got out of, off Broadway. So he became a director, and he did directing, and then he came to Asheville, right? I stumbled into him, and he had the only thing going on was his wife that made some money. She was an executive in a corporation. So they bought a house in Asheville. She could fly out of Asheville to all her business things, and he could be Mr. Director, right? And this was the salon. So this is my kitchen. And this guy, so there was a gay community. And so the gay community was kind of way underground, but my salons kind of brought it out. So this guy, really a great writer, he played a bass wicked. He wrote songs, but he was a great author. I mean, he really wrote great stories. He's a great storyteller, right? His son boy, he's from the Appalachians, right? But gay. So he loved to clean. I mean, clean like, so every Friday he would come in the afternoon and I'd be cooking up something for the salon and he would clean every inch of my place like unbelievably. And so that was his roommate. And she was also a great writer. And she worked for the newspaper, for the Green Line, which was the environmental newspaper that became Mountain Express. And she and I uncovered all of the nasty environmental, because Asheville has serious, meaning if you have a challenged immune system, you don't want to drink water in Asheville because they built a sewer system just before the collapse. And then when the collapse happened, the city couldn't pay any of its contractors. So the guy who built the sewer and water system, which was mostly terracotta pipe, he burnt the documentation of where every pipe is. So the city of Asheville has no idea where about 40%, unless they've replaced it since I was there, they might have. But their water was super duper because people were basically drinking their sewage, right? So all they could really do was add more and more chlorine to kill off the bugs. And all that did was kill the weak bugs and made the stronger bugs stronger. So you don't want to drink, again, I'm just telling you a story. Don't believe a word I say. And anyway, you're in a dimensional different place. So you will see this differently. You will really, when you listen to my stories from the Akashic Record, you'll be able to tell what I'm telling you is true or not. So these folks, they just love me because I'm not a gay guy, but I just love them, and I listen to them and I bring out the best in them. And that whole community just loved me, as did these guys, right? And I helped them start the first freely inquiring society, right? Here's more of those guys, and there's me with my big beard trimmed off. I'm looking like a 1970s rock star. And we would be putting there was this building I took over downtown that this old guy had, and we had rented another German kid, Stefan Eins, and he had become quite the bicyclist and international, and he would make money, and he would go on TV and sell sneakers and bicycle stuff, especially in Europe and especially in German because he was German. He could speak German, but he grew up in Asheville because there were a lot of Nazis that, all of the high-ranking Nazis that we captured during World War II, we didn't put them in a camp in Europe. No, we took them to Asheville, North Carolina, and put them up in the the big fancy hotel in Asheville called, what's it called? It'll pop into my head. But I mean, it's truly high end, and that was made by German folk. And there were a lot of German folk that built these big fancy, like in near Bedford, Virginia. There's the Peaks of Otter, right? Nice hotel, really great restaurant, and a beautiful. All these places to go hiking, right? It's so anyway. So this was the time when raves were kind of percolating, meaning not, I mean, in the 90s, yeah, a rave thing was in the 90s into the early O's. Anyway, you can tell that we have been raving in this. So there was this building that was downtown that we rented. Stefan, me, and his sweetie Janice, and Janice was a great business person, right? Now I can make deals, I can make money, but to make business and be successful at it, but I get tired of doing it. I mean, I want to do something else, you know. I've had many, many successful things, and I just sold them or left them or handed them over to somebody else, right? So the three of us started this. Stefan was really the motivating force because he had this energy of a bicyclist that you just could not stop this guy. He just could do anything. He just went and did it, right? And that's why I loved him. So, and we made a great team. I had this big truck. We would ride around Asheville. And Asheville, even at that time, had a Ritchie neighborhood. And we would pick up stuff that rich people would throw out. I mean, they didn't have thrift stops. I mean, this place was so in, you know, Habitat wasn't there. Nothing was there. Nobody was recycling anything. And we went around and recycled everything. And he would turn it into art. You know, he would get people's clothes and cut it all up. And I told him a story about my friend who had Canal Jeans, and which then became Banana Republic. Anyway, so I basically, you know, I would be the inspirator. He would be the motivator, and Janet would be the person who made sure we made money. So Stefan wanted to call this place "What Do You Want?" because this is before you know, cell phones, and so we got a line into this building, and it was right under 240, right under the highway, right where Lexington Avenue and Broadway kind of came in together and kind of crossed. I mean, it was the crossroads before they built the interstate that cut the black community in half. You know, thank you, Robert Moses. You know, they did. You know, so anyway, we had, and so nobody wanted this building. It was a 3-story building, and because there were 2 streets, and it's a hilly city, the second story, which was the main story, had a big, you know, all glass on Broadway, and you know, big doors that went into this big space, about 2,500 square feet. The basement was on Lexington Avenue, and that was again had big windows, but it was half of it was under the highway, and the hill was going up there. So there was a loading platform, big one, right? And it went into a basement that had a real concrete floor, and that was also so. And it had a big, beautiful staircase that went open like sudden, big open. You know, you could look. You came in these doors, and the stairs went down into the basement, and you saw the basement. It's like big open space that went down the basement. So it was like 2 floors, but they were kind of the same thing. So that was like almost 5,000 square feet there. And upstairs was on the backside of where 240 was, where they made this like little bridgey sidewalky thing that you could get from one end to the other without having to go try to run across the highway. But no one ever took it because it was like a thing they put in that never went to any neighbor, you know, because the neighborhood that it was supposed to go to connect the black folk to was destroyed by the highway. So, but they just put it in because they said, "See, we're thinking about you," right? So they had that. So, but it was a nice, beautiful kind of it was great for skateboarding, right? Woo! Because it went down like a quarter mile down and popped out onto what was then Broadway, which was right along this stream, and it was all houses and there were all these bungalows that the guy, UNCA was a school that taught herbology before the state took it over. This guy had a private university about alternative medicine, right? You heard about the doctor who was up in North Carolina. What's his name, right? The feel good guy. Anyway, I always wore a clown's nose with the cancer kids. Anyway, so that was Asheville. Asheville was this like unbelievable place that all this amazing stuff just kept happening. And I just happened to be there in the 90s when it was like stuck in amber. Nothing was happening. It had been dead since 1929 and just got deader and deader and deader as the years went by. And I reanimated it because I kept finding people who I could like, hey, let's do this. And they said, sure. So here's at What Do You Want? So we would have our parties there too, right? And they always kind of got sweeties, right? And yep. So this is the upstairs. No. This is where is this? No. This is yes. This is the upstairs of What Do You Want? Like where we lived, right? Because the first place I started at, here's Dead Hopes. We're doing a play. So the guy who rented us that, he had another kind of warehouse. Let's see if I got the pictures of the warehouse. So here's downtown Asheville. Again, this is on Haywood Street. Really a beautiful city, right? This is when it was kind of dead. And we did a thing on this street where Wall Street ran into Haywood. We called it Belshare, right? It comes from New Orleans, right? And so I lived out in the woods too. I lived in this chicken farm, right? Up near the Blue Ridge Parkway. And so this was up there, right? And this old guy, my bud, Richie, I mean, he was like older than dirt. And he didn't have cars, he had mules, and he would log. And this is the African, the black African. And so, I got them, hey, let's, there was a market in Asheville, and there was this bridge that, again, another, the highway destroyed the black neighborhood. So they put this bridge, and then they made a housing project that was more like a prison. And they had this bridge that went over. And so the market for the white people, which was downtown, was just like not that far from that bridge. So these people could get into town and without having to go across either, because it was this place where Interstate 26 and Interstate 40 and 240, the thing that goes right through Asheville. And today, 1 million cars and trucks drive right through downtown Asheville. And Asheville is in a bowl that no air goes through it. So, man, they have worse air pollution than LA. So anyway, at the end of that bridge, right downtown Asheville, I started the thing called the Black Market, right? And we did this, right? And we did it one whole summer. And what happened was we had, Artist Trust had taken over away from the rich people, Pack Place, and we were running it, and the blacks had 40% of total say about everything, even though they were only like 10%. But this was their thing, right? All the above. And so here we are having meetings, and the problem, and I knew this. I mean, we won everything. We got control. We had a budget. We had money coming in, and the problem was that the artists are never good organizers, and so basically, after about a year of them, and they just kind of dwindled away, right? And it ended up me always having to do everything, and I didn't want to do any of that. And so, and by the way, we were having Artist Trust was still doing stuff that wasn't part of the Downtown Development Corp, and that's who kind of took it over. And the same thing with Bell Share. I mean, it got bigger and bigger and bigger and started making money. And then Downtown Development took it over. And that's how Vincent Moron and those guys, because they did an end run and took a municipal entity that therefore because they were just going to steal everything. And that was against the law. And they were so rich and powerful, they thought they could do whatever they wanted to. Right. And so I went to the Attorney General of North Carolina and said this was going on, and that person turned me on to this other person who was like a New Yorker. She was like Assistant Attorney General of North Carolina, and she was straight up business in a suit kind of lawyer girl, but she was a anti-war hippie. She was like me, except she was wearing a suit. Anyway, so the guy who rented us the first building, so when Stefan and Janet started and me started, but I wasn't like I never wanted to put my name on the lease. I never wanted to take that kind of responsibility, right? I was working on a different plane. And and you are on that plane right now. If you guys came along for the ride and was in state and still meditating right now, you are seeing this whole show. You are there. So go back and watch this show in the state, and you'll be there. You'll be like in that crowd. So, my salons from my little apartment went into doing these performance things, and we either did them at upstairs above What Do You Want, or in this other factory building that was right downtown. I mean, right down, where the Magic Mushroom is now. There used to be a restaurant. The only one that was there was called Stone Soup, and it was whatever you wanted to pay, and it had been a gas station, so it had big glass garage doors, and in the summertime it was beautiful. So and the Mellow Mushroom bought that out, right? And pretty much if you go to Asheville now, it's just a slime pit of hipster gook. Oh, there's my truck. So there's my truck that I got in upstate New York when I was at Cornell. And it was really beat up. And all I did was spray me and Haig. He did, spray painting. So he had a compressor and spray gun, right? So we taped up the windows and we put super high. I went and bought some super duper high gloss paint. It was a paint company that let us take the Artist Trust had our 501c3. So they were going to throw paint out, and we would just take it and they could take it off their taxes. So they loved us. And they were allowed. So they're Bob Moog's wife. Bob Moog came up to Asheville and took over the art school of UNCA. And that was it. When I was there, UNCA was great because there were guys like Bob Moog who did that. The guy who invented, or who not invented, but popularized the chaos theory in psychology was up there. And here's the other German guy. He and I, we had this love. I mean, he was a German version of me. So he would, every time I was taking a picture, he got in the frame and did something. Like, I don't know if you can see his eyes. He's just. And so there's our buddy who's just having a good, and that's what I love. I mean, he's a great writer, and yet he just loved to have a good time. So that's why he and I. So we started, because they called Asheville the buckle of the Bible Belt, right? And that's where what's his name? Everyone goes on and on about how who's that guy who did the televangelist guy? Billy Graham. He had his mountain, and half of the mountain was Billy Graham's thing, and the other half was the American Nazi Party, KKK. And I knew Billy Graham pretty well because when I was, here towards the end, before I really left here, like around 95, when all of this was going on and being really wild and crazy, and everything was, and people were moving because it was so cool right? And you could buy a house there for $10,000, right? And you could. I could have bought 100 houses for $1,000 and be a zillionaire right now. But that's all I'd been doing. I wouldn't be talking to you right now. So, and I wouldn't have done all the things, between 91 and now, that's, 30 years. I had 6 different lives. I was living in 6 different, I lived in Europe a good chunk of that. I went, that's when I went back to Sweden in the late 90s and bounced all over the place. And then I came back from Sweden going to I'd gone to Iraq and Syria and Libya before, back in the 1970s, right? But I then kind of went around that neck of the woods I could go to in the late 90s before 9/11, And I came to Roanoke in, not Roanoke per se. I actually went to between Roanoke and Lynchburg, up in the mountains, because I was sent there by this entity because they were discovering that there were all these really nasty psycho murders happening between Asheville and what's the name of that city in Virginia, right up at the top. Starts with Salem? No. Right at the top, right on 81, right where 66 goes to DC. It's right there. It's where Woodrow Wilson came from. And that gives a good hint. And anyway, so I kind of just bumped around, and my go-to way to hide in plain sight is I'm just the electrician, man. So I in Lynchburg, what my motif of getting a job is I go there to the electric supply house and eat popcorn and drink coffee until some guy comes in pulling his hair out and I go, oh, so what's your problem? How can I help you? Well, my guys are, this guy's just been wiring houses for the last 20 years and he's gotten to be a pretty big company. And then he takes on a job that's a little bit, he can do it, but his people can't. So he's going to wire a hospital or a jail or something. And that's way more than drilling holes in 2x4s and pulling Romex. And they be screwing it up. And if he doesn't get it, it's on time and on budget. That's how. And they were screwing shit up, so I had to buy more stuff. And he was just like, ah. And I said, I think I can help you. So I did. I went in and I managed his crews, meaning I went from crew to crew to crew, made sure everyone had the materials they needed so they didn't have to get in their truck and go to supply place and, then go to the bar. I just stopped for lunch. And so I kept them on the job and I supplied them materials. And when I know what they were doing that day, and I make sure I was there when they were about to do something critical so they wouldn't screw it up. And so I was making him bucks. I was making him like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a week and making all those jobs hum along. And still he got me to go fix things. Other jobs that these guys had fixed, screwed up, like at the Wendy's or the church or the, littler jobs, not quite these big jobs. So I was doing that and I was riding all over the place. And that's where I met, Jerry, the guy who, the moral majority Jerry, right? And when I was in Asheville, I met the other guy, the other, whoop-de-doo guy, giving Bible whoop-de-doos, right? And those were the two big names in Bible Belt, stardom. And the other guy who I mentioned his name, I can't remember now. So at that time, between 96 and 99, when I went, off, I was jetting, I was making money, I was having things, doing stuff. I was, the traveling itinerant scholar. So I would go to the Asheville airport and get on the airplane. And Asheville was still kind of dead. And so you had to fly to Charlotte, right? And what was the guy's name? Every minister goes, oh yeah, he was my inspiration. The older guy, right? Tall, white hair, he had both Jerry and this guy had sons that screwed the pooch. And anyway, this guy, I would get on that airplane that would fly to Charlotte. A half-hour, 40-minute flight from Asheville to Charlotte, depending if we had to wait in line or whatever. And I would sit next to him and talk to him about theology and everything, and we became really good buds. And he always, when he talked in front of people, he did it, with a suit. And I was always looking like me. But when he's on the airplane, he had cowboy boots, jeans, a nice shirt, and hat, cowboy hat. Billy Graham, that's the guy. And so I'd see Billy all the time. Hey, Billy, how you doing? And he'd see me in town too. Hey, Al. And I would go up to his little hacienda up there. And close to that place, there was a New Age center where this guy built a tagatron, which was a device with crystals and stuff that healed you. It was kind of a Wilhelm building, and it was quite interesting. And I had a friend of mine who did all the wiring and electronics and stuff like that. So I would go up there with him because he knew I was that kind of guy. So and that was the whole thing about that whole all this great and Black Mountain. I was involved in that and its rebirth, and Warren Wilson that was up there. I was part of that. I got those kids to be electricians, and that's my life. That life is there to help you, right? So 2, you're in a deep, 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 deep state of relaxation. Your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath, and you're in your Akashic record, and you have evacuated onto those blank pages, creating a Rorschach of your existence. Then you close the book, and now you feel lighter than everything. All of that darkness is out of it. You open it up again. What do you see? A big screen with 28 little screens around it. And what you see is who you are right at that moment, right? You're like looking at yourself, just like I'm looking at me, right? And down at the bottom, there is that little red line with a little red dot that it's your cursor, right? So put your finger on that red dot and go to the left. Woo! It'll take you all the way back, all the way back, all the way back. Before this life, before the last life, the last life, the last life, all that. Before when you were a dog, back to when you were, a paramecium, and back to where you were just a flotsam of dust coming into this universe, right? See all of that. Now, I want you to travel up and down that red line and see all of that from the past and how karmically it brought you to where you are this second, looking at yourself, like I'm looking at me. And then you can go to the right and look to the future. Well, you won't get the real story. You'll get kind of the story because the future ain't here yet. You'll get the tapestry of the threads that lead you into the future, but you won't see exactly what's going to happen. And that's the thing about the future. It's that you can't see exactly what's going to happen, at least on the linear. Now, on this scalar spiritual side, where God's love, unconditional love is in your heart, and Jesus' unconditional forgiveness is in your head, yeah, you can see it quite clearly. So I'm going to step away for a second. I want you, I'm going to grab my bottle of water here, and I want you to go take a look. Well, I was doing a guided meditation on the internet. I did one yesterday, The Real Deal. A friend of mine who's a shrink in New York wanted to have his blue, so we did it. And that one was The Real Deal. And this one is like a cornucopia. And so, say hi to the gang, sweetie.
Are you?
Yes, I just got out of my car and stepped over to the laptop that's on the top of my car, and there's the YouTube fans. Well, no one's there, but you'll be talking to them, because most people watch me like later, and they watch me like wallpaper. They turn it on and they do the dishes or whatever they're doing, and everyone says that's their more preferential. Back in the earlier days when the cadre was a community, well, that's when I would get people coming, because they came more to talk with each other than to listen to me. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, I am here, and
So what do you think about? So my observation. So I wake up in the morning and I listen to the last bits of the BBC, and then I listen to Morning Edition. And it's like the same crap over and over again. Wars, starvation, whatever the most popular disease is at the moment, whether we're going to be turned into a monkey or what, and poverty, and no one really talks about what the motivating force of why we are here. Now, you're the only other person I know who does that as much as I do. I mean, you run your life under that motivation. I mean, whatever you do every day, you're not doing it to pay the bills or to do this. Yeah, you might be making a little something, but that's not why you're doing it, right?
right.
Why do you do it?
Can't seem to help myself. I don't. Sometimes I wonder why. Oh my goodness! But I mean, mostly
it makes you feel good.
Yeah. Well, it makes me feel like I'm participating. But lately, I kind of sometimes wonder if I'm getting in the way. But anyway, it's easy for me because I've been around my town for so many decades.
Yep.
People in different groups on different issues can call me up and say, "Hey, we're doing something tomorrow."
Right.
Used to be annoying, but now it's really the only way I can plan, or I can just jump if I can, or if I can't, I don't.
Right. Right.
And then the other newer groups that I'm working with are are still unfolding. So that's I need to focus more on the unfolding.
Well, that's good, but what you are, and I think I am too. We're more like the little pebble in the pond, and we're also kind of the example. They point at us and say, "Look at these guys. They've been doing this for like 40 years, and they're not dead yet. They still have a place to live and eat and seem to be happy. Maybe this might be a way to go, right? Don't you think that's kind of what we do?"
Yeah, well, exactly. And the bottom line really is kind of silly basics that humans need to learn how to tolerate and be and rethink the way they've been choosing to do things in the past and put a new lens of cooperation and potential back in their vocabulary as opposed to just following their formats in their business or institutions or even community groups.
The robotic way of doing things, you know.
Mm.
You and I, we aren't robots. You know, we may seem like, I don't even think we seem like we do the same thing all the time now. No. We may seem like we're the same person all the time, but not even that. But we're not stuck, you know?
Right. And, and I am, I'm an artist, so I think differently, and I have to remind myself that
Right.
it comes easily to me because I am also spiritually, bodily connected to Mother Earth, and so that connection is, I know no one person or thing is better than any other. We're all a part of the same, so I don't give. Maybe I still give credit, more emphasis to people in power. I guess I do, but I don't want to.
I think you do it because two reasons. One, you've kind of grown up around it. Kind of. I mean, so is me. Both of us. We're not like from super rich, but we're from white families that were upper middle class, and we're in the mix, right? So we saw our parents do similar things in their own way and whatever they were doing. But we saw that. So we saw that it wasn't impossible. And the other thing we really realized was, it took me 60 years to realize that everyone didn't think the way I did. And so I would just go off and do stuff, and people couldn't believe I would just go off and do stuff, and make things happen.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm talking about, the silly simple, because, it's like you need a poster, make one. You need a sign, make one. You need to sell some cookies, sell them.
Right.
But somehow some people are still stuck in the, well, is it okay?
Right.
Or shouldn't I get paid?
Right.
Or big bucks? Or, so it's very strange for me because I grew up with so many people, whatever their income, coming together for politics, for social activism.
Right. That's better than politics.
So, you only did it if you had the time and you did it because you were just committed to it. I mean, it's just what you believed in, and all knew that maybe there would be one person that would get paid at the top to keep the mailing list and the organization going and pay. But the rest of us pretty much knew we were volunteers, and that's just normal. But it doesn't feel normal these days to find, well, certain groups of people are quick to volunteer. The environmentalists, I guess, they're still got that tradition.
But didn't you get involved? Because I know my involvement was not to get paid, because I knew whatever I did, something on the side, someone would say, wow, that was great. I need you to do this, and here's some money, right?
Right.
So that was, what I was doing was more like advertising. But the real reason I was doing it, like working in community. Now I can, I sit around and read a lot and write a lot by myself, but that's because I enjoy my own company. When I was an artist, a painter, a sculptor, I painted and sculpted in my little studio. But in the reality of me doing that was I wasn't thinking of being rich and famous. I was doing that because I really liked doing it, right? And I knew that I would take my art and I would bump into somebody else who was an artist, and we would then be buddies, and we would then figure out something fun to do with our art, right? And so to me, doing that and then working with other people was me having fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of wish that I'd learned the skills and the motivation towards making big bucks, because of all the art and all the things that I've done, somebody else would have put it into a really cool book. Or,
Well, that's why you got to,
or
why I have all those photo books. I was a social scientist, and you have to document everything. And I was writing grants, and the best way to get grants for art was to take pictures of what we were doing. So,
right?
that's what you had to get into is taking pictures of it, documenting it. But you didn't.
Right.
I mean,
If you had a book now, you'd be getting royalties every month.
well, it's interesting. I had some really amazing pictures, and my father, through all of mine, I built my dad a house, right? I built him a house, and I made, because I'm a traveler, I made a secret closet where I kept all my precious things in. And he found the closet and he threw all of my precious things away.
Oh,
So I only have the photos I have that I've shown you is about a tenth of. I mean, when I worked at the Fillmore East, boy, I mean, I was at parties with the Velvet Underground and the Beatles. I took pictures of, because that's what I did. I took pictures. And I mean, and they all took pictures too. They were all taking. It's like doing selfies. I mean, what's his name? All those Beatles have photo books because they all were taking pictures of everyone had their Nikon, and
right.
so that didn't bother me that much because the universe always takes care of me. I mean, I see the real deal is when I did make a lot of money, it actually took me away from having fun. I had to die to come back to between the first time I met you, 20 something years ago, and about 2014, I would pop in and say hi and do some of this and some of that, and then I'd not be there, right? I wasn't always there because I was working, in the corporate world and working for, making money, and I made a lot of money, bought a lot of shit, but it didn't make me really that much happier. Actually, now that I have nothing out here in the woods, I'm actually happier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tonight is going to be 29 degrees, and tomorrow's not getting above 36. And I don't have any heat, so I have my electric blanket, and so that'll keep me warm while I sleep.
Right.
But getting out to go to the John or waking up in the morning, but I don't have any place to go, so I don't have to wake up.
Yeah. Well, if people can simplify their lives, enjoy wherever they are,
right?
Then it simplifies things a lot.
But so you and I have worked in social activism and social welfare I don't know how long you've been doing it, but at least you and I have been fooling around with it together for at least 8 years, 10 years. Now you've done the environmental thing and you've done a lot of other things that, like, I wasn't right there with you, but since about 2014ish, I was in Roanoke and we were, doing stuff at the Hope Center and all over the place. And my observation of poverty is that people have allowed themselves to be in poverty, right? And I observe certain people who don't have a nickel, and they're happy. There was a guy in Grandin who always swept the streets, and he was like the mayor of Grandin. Do you remember that black guy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually doing a sculpture with Mom.
You're doing a what?
The community wanted a sculpture of him for some reason. Memorial. So we've got to take him up to get to the foundry this week.
What's interesting is a guy like that. I knew him when he had no place to, a lot of the time he didn't have a place to stay. It'd been nice if they memorialized him when he was alive.
Right. I know. Help him with his healthcare and
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
I
mean-
know. I was torn when the request came to sculpt it, but I was itching to do a sculpting project.
Right,
and
right. Well, you were the person to do it. Yes, you're the girl. You knew him, you experienced him, and he was great. So there were a lot of other people like that. And they
Well,
did-
exactly. That was Well, I'm moving into another thought regarding the memorializing or recognizing the racism in Roanoke. That was another reason why it was hard for me to wanting to take on this project with him, because he is not a black. It's not a neighborhood of the many.
of the hood. He was in the Grandin.
Yeah.
And he was in the Grandin when people don't even realize that Grandin was a
Our one
down
black friend.
right. It was black, and it was a down low town, a part of town, because all those really nice houses were single room occupancies. You know, like the backside of where Grandin is, where the railroad tracks are, and that triangle between Jefferson and Campbell, where a lot of nice houses still are, and they were all single room occupancies. I mean, they were all rich people's upper middle management of railroad guys, right? Then when that went away, they became SROs, and then when Carillion came in, they got bought up and became lawyers and doctors' offices. And if you felt a little tie between that, you know what you really should do? So, have you done the sculpture, or have you started it? Are you in the middle of it? Or what level are you at it?
It's not just me. My mom is a sculptor, and
Right.
so I'm basically assisting her. But I think it's probably gonna. I think she's gonna name it or claim it. Give us both. I don't know.
Right. Take claim of both of them. Yes.
But anyway, she paid me to help make it,
right.
and it's done in clay. And this Thursday we'll be driving it. We have to go to the foundry to
Right.
deliver.
What foundry are you going to use?
To tell you the truth, I'm not recalling the name because
Where is it?
Oh, this new one is in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I knew it wasn't in town. But you know what you should do? I tell you what you should do. If you should take your phone, right, and just start putting videos. Like when we get off, just sit down, put your phone on you, and talk about how you feel about this sculpture, and talk about the connection of all the social activism within the dynamic of social, racial, and economic disparity, and do little bits like 5-10 minutes or however long, less than half an hour, but a bunch of them. And then when you go with your mom, go to her house the night before and sit down with her and talk about the sculpture and the this and the that and her experience of that guy and what she thinks of this and that, and put it together as a film. Because like I told you, your ability to tell a story is quite good, and you're a visual person, and the phone is so easy to use.
Yeah.
And then once you put it down on the cloud or put it up in your laptop, so you have it in your hard drive, you got it in a place you can protect it, you can then kind of edit it, and you can experiment and get yourself a YouTube channel and a TikTok channel, and just start laying down your shit. And that way you can that's one reason why I do this YouTube thing. I was a photographer first, then someone said, oh, you should do this. They just set it up for me. I just had to push the button, go, and I can do it, right? And I'm leaving, so at the beginning there were a lot of people watch, but not so much. But then people started watching it like wallpaper, and it affected a lot. I mean, I have at least 100 people who've got a hold of me on my email and said, I watched this and and talked to me and became someone who I actually affected for the good, that they changed their life. That's 100 people. That's more than anybody, most people, even guys who spend their lives being a shrink.
Right.
Right. So you have that in you. You do. I mean, that's what you do. The thing you do best is how you affect positive change amongst everyone you come in contact with. I mean, that's my observation as a social scientist. That's your real art form. You do all these other things. That's like me. You know how I read people's palms? That's my hook to get them talking, to open them up, to get them to feel comfortable, all the rest. And you really affect a lot of people that you're really not aware. So if you documented all these things that you feel and think right now, like when we get off the phone, you can start doing, and that's the one thing that I noticed about you is once you get going, it's not a problem. It's like getting going, right? And you've had to motivate yourself to get going in the artist realm by taking on projects, right? That's another reason why you get involved in all this stuff, is that it motivates you to get going.
Yeah.
If not, you'd kind of sit in your nice little place up there in the hills. You and I have we are the two guys sitting on top of the mountain.
Yeah. I could easily
Yes.
choose to be a hermit again and probably be better off for it. But
Well, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. No matter how much agita and conflict or whatever you think those headaches are, no, they're worthwhile. I mean, all this shit. Even I came here. I bought this place 20 years ago because I thought I'm 50 miles the closest Walmart. No rich people. I mean, this place failed because no rich person wanted to stay here. They couldn't live with themselves. So I said, those morons won't show up. Well, they didn't for a good 18 years. And then with the pandemic, everyone went and looked for some place they could hide. And they came and bought the shit up. And so they bought it up, ripped it up, tore it up, fucked it up. But then they left. Once when things kind of went back to normal, they left. So the majority of those really annoying shits aren't here anymore. I mean, they own the property, they did this, they did that. They sometimes come here, but they're not as annoying as they were 2 years ago. But the silver lining of them, they really made me double down on my patience. You know? So that was a good thing about them. And that's why no matter what fucked up shit they did, people go, don't you hate them? They're teaching blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, I couldn't care less. You know?
Well, and that's part of the big lesson, of course, is once again those simple practices of being patient, of listening, of recognizing who to work with, who not to work with.
Yep.
Yeah. So right now I've got a Dinkra symbol from Africa, from West Africa, Ghana, I think, and it's a symbol of it looks like a turtle, but it's a symbol of an alligator, and it stands for the ability to adapt, and that these creatures remind us that though they live in water, they still can breathe air
and walk on land.
Yeah. So that's the adaptability symbol, and so I'm putting together. I've been drawing them for years now, wanting to stimulate the kids that BJ works with. But I held back in my being a teacher, and chose to just be the background helper, props and whatnot, and kind of made a mistake with that.
Yeah, you should definitely be. I mean, when I help her out, 90% of what I do is interact with those kids. I say, here, this is an extension cord. This is how it works. Stuff like that. You want to be a lighting designer? Let's do this together. And that's what I did with their kids. And I talked to all of them, and I listened to all of them. And you know, that's why, I mean, I wasn't just going to do her lighting for her. I, you know, wanted them to get involved. So, but you can still do that, you know, if you didn't do
Yeah.
it before, you can do it now.
It's just tricky because it takes so much time to seek out and find and coordinate and
Yep.
organize. Like I prefer just to have somebody else